We're going out to find him.
What? What are you talking about? What do you mean?
Exactly what I said. We're gonna go out and find the master.
I don't like to work without the master.
Well, okay. If you guys don't want to work, why don't we play a game?
You know, all of a sudden you're being so darn nice to him all of a sudden.
Oh, that. Well, I was just thinking, and I got this feeling that I should be nicer to him for a change, you know? And now I feel better.
Did too?
Did not!
Hey, come on. How do you guys expect us to get there if you're fighting all the time? Come on. I'm not the master. Go snuggle somewhere else. I'm trying to get some sleep. Now go on.
The Brave Little Toaster is probably one of the most unique animated movies that I think I've seen. Granted, there's probably a lot more unique ones out there that I haven't seen yet, but at the present time, this is the most unique. Loosely based on the 1980 novel by Thomas M. Deash, it follows 5 anthropomorphic appliances left behind by their owner and their subsequent quest to reunite with him. Just from that synopsis, you might expect it to be the typical light-hearted adventure for those very young, but instead this movie tackled some rather heavy themes ranging from abandonment, worthlessness, depression, loyalty. This is truly a movie that consists of so many layers. It even has that Pixar feel to it, fitting considering that some of the people that worked on it later went over to the studio. I was also shocked to learn that it isn't on Disney Plus and seems to be very hard to find these days, but thankfully I was able to find and watch it, and I'm glad that I did. One of the main reasons why I believe The Brave Little Toaster is so well structured in the story aspect is the titular character himself, Toaster. He might be just an ordinary, well, toaster that you find in your kitchen that has a silly smiley face plonked on, but he's honestly an incredible character that has so many characteristics that build upon each other to create what could essentially be a perfect good guy, especially for a movie with themes such as this one. If you saw the previous video I made on Mittens from Bolt, which you all loved and I'm so grateful for all the support I got on that by the way, then this video will be similarly structured, but because Toaster is the main protagonist and is in almost the whole movie, not to mention is a much more complex character, this does mean I'll be covering pretty much the entire flick. Some scenes I won't cover in as much detail as others since they don't really see Toaster's character develop too much, but I think it's important to mention them for context and to bridge everything together neatly. This does also mean that I'll be talking about the other characters too, but again it won't be in as much detail as not stray away from the main topic. I'm really looking forward to this subject, and honestly it was quite tough at times writing the script since I didn't want to miss anything crucial out that I think was important for Toaster's character arc. All the same though, I enjoyed this topic a lot and hopefully you will too. One final thing, I wasn't able to get a hold of good quality footage, so it's on the lower side this time, but that won't matter one bit, you can all see what's happening very clearly. Alright, that's everything laid out, let's do this. Instantly as the story begins, Toaster is already established as a likeable individual. His awakening after a slumber, much like a human, goes through stages. The slow process of his mind slowly restoring, followed by his eyes peeping open, and then finally springing, or rather popping, into life. This process is accompanied by the natural mechanisms of Toaster's nature, the steam steadily rising as the bread begins to cook while his eyes open, and then the popping right as he awakens, although in this case there is no bread that has been toasted. He feels empty inside. Toaster is instantly shown as a personality that enjoys and recognises the light-hearted, joyful moments in life. He finds amusement when he sees his fellow appliances getting themselves ready for the day ahead, and giggles at the sight of Lampy and Radio chasing each other around. These other appliances aren't just acquaintances, or more so work colleagues, they are his friends. His sense for fun times is clearly made when he swings himself down using his plug wrapped around a broom. Toaster shows great joy in this creative way of getting up from his place of rest. His ideas of fun are on display more when in his established leadership position, shown very quickly by the other appliances turning to him for guidance, he comes up with an extravagant way of completing the work they are required to do. Instead of just cleaning, they get the tasks done in the form of a game, something that can help them bond together more. Not only does this act show Toaster's optimistic, creative and positive approach to life, it displays the care he has for his friends. He understands and sympathises with the repetitive, draining nature of doing the same thing over and over again that the rest of the appliances bring to his attention. Not only is the work repetitive, it's also depressing, since Blanky declares that it's not fun without their master, and his absence makes the work sadder than it has no reason to be. Incredibly, in just under 10 minutes, Toaster's list of positive characteristics have been established, and we can easily like him based on them. Complete with a groovy jig in his step, Toaster gladly leads the rest of the appliances in their work progress, helping them at every opportunity he can, proving once again his kind-hearted nature. There is more proof shown that Toaster cares about his friends, to the point where he has become familiar with their behaviour patterns. When Blanky gets a sense of something, it's Toaster who's the one that brings everyone's attention to it, always making sure to keep everyone alert and up to date with the occurrences that suddenly happen throughout the day. Blanky announces that he believes that their master is returning. An individual that Blanky loves and cares for, feels protected by, and respects his status. However, when it is revealed that their master is not returning, the group's mood drops and they slump back into their disappointment, depression and sadness, but not before they work together to see if their dream really is coming true. Toaster, in spite of his bubbly positivity, does indeed have a connection with the master all the same, as he too is sad at him not returning. But we also see his stern disapproval for jokes in times of grieving. Lampy asks if the master is back, despite all the signs that he isn't, and Toaster is visibly unimpressed with Lampy's approach to the realisation. He doesn't even need to voice his disapproval, he simply shows it physically through his face and even his body language, however limited it is. This is just enough for Lampy to understand his comment was out of line in this time. Toaster then comes across a parallel to his character, the air conditioner, or the AC. While Toaster possesses optimism of the master's return, which he himself even says, the AC is more accepting of the reality. The master is gone, having left all of them behind. He even becomes rather cruel in his statement, insulting the group and mocking their attachment to the master, but in the words of these comments, Toaster defiantly stands his ground and with great pride, states that they will not give up hope. He might be a gentle soul with a knack for jumpy activities, but he won't let anyone take advantage of him and push him around. Just another character trait that shows why Toaster has taken the title of the leader, a respectable one at that. In the next moment, Toaster calls out the AC, questioning if his attitude is fueled by envy, that the master didn't care for him like he did the others. The AC in response shows that he does in fact have feelings and isn't emotionless and cold, despite him producing physical coldness. He suffers a violent outburst that ends with his demise, an outburst that Toaster tried to subdue with the echo that his comments were not to be taken in that way, showing that he does have regrets in his words and is perhaps mortified with himself for having stooped to that level. It's not in his nature. The AC's demise is mourned differently by the members of the group. Blanky feels sympathetic, Kirby not so, and Toaster being shocked that he took it all in the way he did. Perhaps Toaster didn't really know the AC all that well after all, and maybe should have formed a stronger connection with him and given him another chance. The AC did in fact care for the master. Another fantastic characteristic of Toaster, even when he has his problems with others and throws the cruelest words, he would not wish the worst to happen to them. He truly has his morals set right. More strengths for Toaster are his drive and determination, as well as his means to pick himself and others up. A sign is nailed outside the house, presenting it as up for sale, signalling for sure that the master is truly gone. But while the rest of the appliances feel dejected and demoralised by their apparent abandonment, it's Toaster that's the one that snaps them back into reality, not letting them mope and mourn, and in his true leadership, fueled by his optimism and connections, defiantly states that he and his friends will venture out into the unknown to find their master, a place outside of their comfort zone where their functions will be unable to be of use. Toaster recruits everybody, and in this process, he once again demonstrates his disapproval for jokes in times of need. In this case, the jokes are negative characteristics of Kirby. While Lampy, Blanky and Radio describe Kirby as loud, grumpy and oblivious to reality respectively, Toaster is the only one to offer a positive comment, that being Kirby is strong. He recognises the uplifting natures of his friends, and he wasn't too pleased at the negative comments. All the more reason why Toaster is fit to lead this group. Following a few unsuccessful attempts, the group of appliances finally find a way to venture out, since they don't have legs like a dog, one of which went on a noble quest and succeeded, as Radio mentioned earlier. Surely they will follow in his footsteps. Only a few minutes into their journey, the quarrelling between the group already begins, but Toaster, true to his leadership nature, is the one to get everyone on the same page. After all, they're all in this together and they'll have to work as a team in order to find their master. We also see our first instance of the appliances proving that they can in fact be useful away from the house. Radio promotes himself to navigator since he can use his aerial to pick up a signal from any civilization that might be nearby, truly using his mind to good use. They soon end up at their first bump in the road, heading into a clearing that has no way out. Of course, this mishap leads to them arguing again, but Toaster firmly tells them to give it up. He's had enough of this, especially after he just told them that they need to be on the same page, and realising that it's probably the tiring journey, proposes they get some rest. Although he brushes Blanky off when he tries to snuggle with him, maybe a slight negative characteristic added to Toaster there, as we know Blanky is very much an individual that likes to have company. Continuing on their journey in the morning, they come across a flowery field that is glowing with life. Many animals from land and water are thriving in their comfort zone, and they find pleasure and happiness from seeing themselves in the reflective surface of Toaster. Well, at this point now do we know that Toaster, despite his upbeat nature, doesn't have a sense of humour. He disapproved of jokes told by the other appliances, and now he does not see the funny side in the animals using his body as a mirror where they can marvel at their own appearances, something they've probably never been able to do. Not only is the attention something Toaster disapproves of, but it also overwhelms him, quickly escaping from the scene, only to be met by a bright yellow flower basking in a ray of sunshine. He escapes the flower all the same, but this time Toaster reconsiders his decision and he looks back through the bushes at the flower and sees it droop down in sadness and perish despite it still being in the sunshine, and Toaster walks away dejected. Perhaps his means of brushing others aside is more hurtful than he realised. Maybe he should have been nicer, friendlier, more accepting and more appreciative of how others view him. We've learned a lot about Toaster. He's very layered, possessing many characteristics that are mostly on the positive side, but now we're seeing another side to him. He might not be as warming as he appears. The group soon find themselves in another roadblock, a dark forest consumed by tall trees, and much like Radio, who used his function to good use in the unknown, Blanky uses his function to form a tent spread out from the tree branches. He too can be of good use outside his comfort zone. Now remember what we said about Toaster not being as friendly as we perhaps first thought? Well, why don't we take a look at the next scene? With the group all snuggled together, keeping each other safe, Kirby and Radio have fallen asleep, as has Blanky. Toaster pats the sleeping Blanky, showing his care and warmth. However, his actions are being watched by Lampy, and in perhaps the most raw and realistic conversation in the entire movie, Lampy calls out Toaster, asking him why the change of behaviour. Why is he being nice to Blanky all of a sudden? He wasn't always this nice to him. And this one questioning by Lampy tells us even more about Toaster's character. We suspected something about him in the previous scene when he brushed off those that were showing kindness to him, and now it's pretty much a reality check. Toaster, long before we ever saw him, was not always the optimistic, upbeat, strong-hearted and considerate personality. He was, if we can assume this adjective is accurate, a jerk. Toaster was an unkind personality. We don't know how mean he could have been, or maybe possibly been a bully of sorts, but we can't really jump to conclusions. We're just going off Lampy's words. We don't know what Toaster was truly like before we met him, but we can get the idea that he wasn't a very nice individual, made even more so by his mistreatment of Blanky, the most innocent soul of the group. Imagine if this movie was taking place while they were still at home with the Master. I don't think we would have liked Toaster. This change of heart is something Toaster was committed to achieve, as he states bluntly that he thinks he should be nicer to Blanky, but he doesn't really elaborate beyond giving rather cryptic comparisons that tie into his function. Perhaps the demise of the flower may have had something to do with it? But one thing we can take away from this is that Toaster is willing to change himself. He realises the error and wrongness of his past nature, and he does in fact have a heart. He wants to change himself, redeem himself from his past sins, and while Lampy doesn't really understand Toaster's motivations behind this change, he accepts it. Toaster has earned more respect to add to his already impressive amount. Toaster has a lot of layers to his character, as we have discussed: the drive of determination, the strong leadership, the optimism, the bubbly knack for fun, the mourning for the demise of others, and the realisation of appreciation. But does Toaster perhaps have insecurities? Fears? Well, in a scene that almost takes us back in time, we see the Master using Toaster and all of his functions to positive effect. The popping of the bread now converted into toast, and the reflective surface where the Master can have fun and enjoy himself. But it soon turns into a nightmare. Black smoke pours from Toaster and whisks away his Master, and he's tortured by Forks and the precarious fall into a bathtub, all at the hands of a manic clown who emerged from the flames below. Forks and bathtubs are certainly negative vehicles. They can result in an injury, or even demise by an electric shock. It's rather interesting that Toaster envisions the clown coming from below rather than above. Maybe Toaster believes he's heading there, and that may also be another motivation for his change of heart. He's fearful of going down below. Plus, these horrifying visions offer a picture of Toaster's fears. He could be harmful to his master if one mistake were to occur. His functions may be positive and safe, but they could also be negative and dangerous. A storm awakens Toaster and the others in the middle of the night, showing that Toaster was merely caught in a dream. The strong winds blow Blanky away, and if there was any more proof that Toaster has formed a stronger connection with Blanky, he's the one that expresses the most emotion to the winds taking him away. Lampy ends up recharging the battery strapped to the chair by channeling the bolts of lightning, knowing that they need it in order to continue on, but at the cost of himself. He's severely injured but otherwise survives, having shown that he can also be useful away from his natural environment. They later find Blanky tangled up high in a tree, and this leads to Kirby using his function to good use, cleverly winching himself up by sucking up his own wire. He too can be useful in this new environment. Another obstacle comes in the group's way in the form of a waterfall, this causing Kirby to have a severe panic attack, but Toaster is able to stop him before he causes harm to himself and successfully brings him back to his senses. He is not going to lose any member of this group. We know that Toaster has his fears, and here comes another one. When the group string themselves over the waterfall, Toaster's own panic sets in. He begins to zone out and feel intimidated by the intense height he is up on and the precarious danger hanging below him. He loses his senses so badly that he lets the wire slip from his grasp, and he along with the others plunge into the ravine below. That is, except for Kirby, who now having warmed up to the others, dives down into the water to save them. Though they are saved, Toaster feels guilty and blames himself for the occurrence, knowing that he was the one that let go of the wire and put everyone in danger. Toaster's fears are certainly strong, so strong in fact that they are at extreme levels of threatening to him. When it comes to things he is scared of, he is intensely afraid. This helps us sympathise with Toaster even more, as I'm sure we have all had fears just the same. But despite all his fears hidden deep inside his mind, ones that he has not opened up about, he still finds a way to power up his optimism. The group have another near demise by sinking into a swamp, where they shockingly accept that they're going down, but they do everything they can to save each other to sadly no avail. However, they're rescued by a man named Elmo St. Peters and taken into the city to a hardware store, where many other appliances like themselves are being kept to have their parts harvested, since they are broken and have been cast off by their owners. Many of them have become unrecognisable after falling into such a state of disrepair. We don't know how exactly these appliances came to be, but we know that they were all picked up in some place by Elmo. We see Elmo take apart a blender to retrieve his motor as a customer that came in requested one, a blender that was working perfectly mind you. While Elmo isn't a sadistic horrible person and is mainly just at work doing favours for others and keeping himself financially stable, sadly to Toaster and the rest of the group, this work is torture. They're not helped in the slightest by the other rundown appliances, who inform them that there is no way out, signalling that their end is surely near. Radio almost has his tubes extracted, but the group manages to save him by working together and scaring Elmo out of his wits, Toaster's reflective surface proving to be useful, and this allows not just the main group to escape, but everyone else too. They saved everybody, and they can return back to their true places from whence they came. Truly, this group has proven many times that they are useful anywhere they go. The appliance group make their way through the city and eventually track down their master, who we have learned is named Rob. They make their way into the apartment where he currently lives with his mother, but discover that he isn't there, and instead what is there is a whole host of brand new modern appliances, ones far more advanced than they are, filled with reliable gadgets and an assortment of useful features. The modern appliances, jealous that Rob intends to take Toaster and the group to college instead of them, Rob even going back to the old house to go and collect them, flaunt their new features in vibrancy and grace. This convincing the older appliances that Rob for sure has now moved on to these new high-tech creations and sees no further use in them. Toaster led the group on a meaningless journey, one that was all for nothing. They are kicked out into the trash where they feel they belong, making no effort to escape this time, being content with their oncoming fate. But little do they know that Rob is distressed at their absence from the old house and vows to go find them, since he knows that he left them right there. Before he leaves, he even repairs the AC who was destroyed earlier in the movie, and the AC cries of joy when he sees that the master did care for him all this time. The group are sent to their inevitable resting place, the junkyard, where individuals are sent to meet their end. It's even more depressing when the appliances meet several motor cars who all outlived their purpose and have no further use just like them, all content with their demise after offering something so special to the world previously. It's here we see that Toaster has finally given up. His fears became true and he can no longer lead his friends to a brighter, happier future. Instead, he led them all to an eternal sleep. It's even more horrific when we see the giant magnet disposing of the scrap cars with no remorse or sympathy, taking great pleasure in sending them to the graveyard in the sky. But as fate would have it, an old television set, one in the same category as Toaster and the rest, an older appliance that also lived in the house, does everything he can to save them when he sees that Rob, having now returned to his apartment, expressing his care for his old appliance friends. The group are ready to accept their fate when Rob soon arrives, the appliances realising that he does in fact still need them. But the giant magnet is intent on ending the group and does not let them escape, being so hell-bent on his goal that he even tries to end Rob himself. Toaster is there to see Blanky, Radio, Kirby, Lampy and Rob heading to their demise, everyone he cared for, made happy, spurred on in the toughest of times and gave them the optimism and hope they desperately needed. In this moment, Toaster understands what he needs to do to prove that his function is important. He watched everyone else show their importance in the times of danger and uncertainty, and the function that he needs to put to use is his very own being. Toaster jumps off a giant scrap pile and jams himself between the gears of the crusher, stopping it and saving all of his friends, but costing himself his own life, a sacrifice fitting of a hero of honour. However, the mere nature of Toaster can help revive him. Modern appliances tend to break and cannot be repaired, but Toaster isn't modern and he was built to last. Such was the function of appliances of old, and Toaster is repaired through the help of his master Rob, because he'll never find another Toaster like this, and he wants to relive those happy moments of being a child, seeing himself in the reflective surface and finding joy in the toast popping out. The group are reunited with their master and can maintain their usefulness and importance, and if it wasn't for Toaster, they may have never ended up there. Toaster is the true definition of a true hero. He had all the positives that one should possess, being optimistic, bubbly, kind and determined, but he was grounded to reality through the presence of his fears and his sometimes cold means of brushing others off, and he wasn't always so kind. He was honest about that fact, but he was willing to change, and that earns a large amount of respect. Toaster was truly the right fit to take charge of this group of important and meaningful appliances. He was truly an honourable leader. Toaster as a character and this movie as a whole definitely need much more appreciation, but at the same time I feel like the rarity and obscurity of this media just makes it all the more special. One major strength I want to point out is the representation about how important appliance repair is. The make and models of the appliances is a great image of how manufacturers built them back then. They were designed to be reliable and guaranteed for life, and their build quality meant that they were able to be repaired by the average Joe if something ended up breaking or going wrong. We see how Rob was able to revive the AC unit and toaster using just basic tools, something that was common and easy to do. Nowadays many appliances are designed in a way that they aren't easily able to be disassembled, and thus you can't repair them, meaning that you sadly have to throw them out and buy new ones. I'm sure we're all familiar with this. Manufacturers really don't want anyone to do DIY. So I thought I'd mention that just now, as I really like that the movie tackled and acknowledged this fact. Very cool. Anyway, on to the main man himself, Toaster. He has to be one of the most unlikely complex characters that I've seen in animation. He could have easily just been a happy-go-lucky toaster with a knack for adventures, but he had plenty going on for him. He was loyal and determined and had a natural bout of charisma which helped him secure his position as the leader. He did like bouts of fun here and there, but he knew when it was time to take things seriously and wasn't afraid to sternly put his foot down when it was needed. One of his best qualities was the fact that he himself was vulnerable and not immune to fears. We saw this in his nightmare, which displayed exactly what he had on his mind, fitting considering dreams usually are fueled by what we think about. The ways of his possible demise were incredibly creative and ingenious, showing the typical and common hazards associated with toasters like metal forks and bathtubs filled with water. There was also the scene where he was intimidated by the great height of the waterfall, and his own fear ended up bringing harm to his friends, something he really beat himself up over. And of course, I can't not mention the scene when he speaks about his past personality, proving that he wasn't always this way and was determined to redeem his past actions. That's absolutely awesome, and of course that heroic sacrifice at the end was the culmination of everything that had been built up about him. Again, just amazing writing. Toaster was definitely written with complexion and wasn't just the typical clean-cut vanilla hero type. The rest of the cast were great too. They weren't quite as complex, but they served as great backbones for Toaster to fall on. They all got starring moments where they used their natural functions as a means to help each other, making their bond all the more genuine. I don't have any bad things to say about any of them. They all offered the important pieces that make Ensemble Cast perfect. Lampy was the wisecracking joker, Blanky was the timid child, Kirby was the uptight grump, and Radio was the energetic loudmouth. I loved all their designs and how they moved around as well. Great job by the animators. The AC, despite being a minor character, may have started as an opposing roadblock to everyone else's nature, but his demise was a sad one, and we feel that joy inside when Rob revives him. While we didn't see much of Rob himself, the picture that was painted of him throughout the movie helped us connect with him, and we want him to find all the appliances and beg that he didn't meet his demise in the Crusher. And speaking of the Crusher, that scene in the junkyard was honestly just so depressing. Seeing all those cars that were once living the dream reduced to forgotten scrap cast off by the ones who loved them, and the fact they were all accepting and waiting for their demise. They even gave us their backstories, helping us use our imaginations to think about what previous life they had. This scene has a lot going on, and I think I'll make a future video dedicated to it. And that goes for the rest of the movie too. There's just so much to it that I'd need at least an hour to go over everything with a fine-tooth comb, and if I did that here, then it would definitely be going far longer. So I'll end this particular video focusing on Toaster here. He was an amazing main character that was so grounded with strengths and weaknesses, positives and negatives. I know there's some sequels out there that I haven't watched and I don't know how Toaster's character develops or if the movies themselves were any good. Maybe I'll check them out sometime. As for the Brave Little Toaster movie, I highly recommend you go watch it. It was so ahead of its time, has aged amazingly well and is still relevant even in these present times. You'll be glad that you did. I don't really know why it's not on Disney Plus, but I read it was something to do with the rights being owned by Hyperion Pictures rather than Disney, and this leads to the movie being harder to find these days. Thankfully it's up on YouTube, at least at the time of this video being recorded, so I'd get it watched before it might end up going down. Be sure to let me know if you want to see a follow up to this video where I talk about more aspects of the Brave Little Toaster, as there's honestly just so much going on and I'd love to talk about more of it. But for now, I've been Jay the Taz and I'll see you next time.